Tucker Carlson interviews Vladimir Putin and freedom of speech. Is it really free or does it come at a cost? And the pitfalls and perils of being an honest-to-goodness journalist these days. All that and more coming up next on I'm Not Famous. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Just thought I'd have a quick walk and talk today. Out of the studio. Taking a nice break outside. Beautiful day outside. You might hear some birds chirping, trains going by, occasional car, occasional onlooker looking at me strangely. But hey, isn't a podcast just pretty normal these days? Everyone's doing a podcast. There's like 8-year-olds doing a podcast on their way to school. There's 15-year-olds doing podcasts in school. So I don't know why they're looking at me. Anyway, I just wanted to have a casual chat about something that I think is quite interesting. Want to talk about Tucker Carlson. I've talked about him before. I think he's one of the last true journalists, real journalist, fair journalist, open-minded. And he is currently in Russia. Either he is about to or he already has interviewed Vladimir Putin. And let me tell you, folks, this is stressing the mainstream media because they didn't get there first. And they're all whining, saying, oh, we asked too. Even if you asked, I don't think you asked very hard. And let's be honest. Like I say with modern mainstream media, you know, they're not journalists. Anyone who thinks they are journalists, I think you have to get your facts straight. They're just news anchors. They're celebrities. They're a face. And that's nothing new. That's been going on for decades. Ever since the days of Tom Brokaw, when they stopped reporting the news and they started selling it to you. Selling you the spin, selling you the excitement. It has to be adventure, violence, car chase. It can't just be news. You can't interview both sides and get an actual open dialogue between two people who might have opposing views. That's boring. And the other thing with mainstream media, look, when you're bought and sold by the advertisers, you can't be honest. You can't have an honest opinion, or dare I say, not even opinion, because that's editorial. You can't talk about facts when you're owned by Pfizer, when the next ad popping up for your show is all ads about Pfizer and pharmaceuticals. So, again, I feel for them, you know. For any of those people in mainstream media, maybe you are trying. Maybe you're caught up in the whole vicious cycle. You know, whether it's Fox News or CNN, whether you're left or right, it's not about that. And yeah, I might lean towards one of those news outlets more, but let's face it, they're all the same. And they're becoming less and less. It used to be about competition. That was the key. That's America. That's capitalism. It's about competition to make sure if someone's not doing it right and you think you can do it better, and you do, then you should get a chance. But more and more of the media outlets, they're all owned by the same companies. So my point is it's irrelevant really at this point. So all we can hope for is the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Joe Rogans, the Russell Brand, even Bill Maher to an extent. You know, Bill Maher has come a long way. And to this day, he still, of course he considers himself a liberal, but he says he's old school liberal, you know. He still has a logical mind, I think. He still, for the most part, he's still passionate about some things without being convinced, but that's his right. He doesn't have to be convinced if he doesn't want to, but you know what's great about him? He's willing to have the conversations. He's willing to have everyone on the show, from the right, from the left, from the middle, whatever. That's the great part. And all these people that I've mentioned, Jimmy Dore as well, and all the guys out on the Valuetainment channel, all of them have had they've had each other on the show. Russell Brand has been on Bill Maher, and you've had a mix of discussions and open opinions, and that's the point. And that's why I wanted to start off by talking about true journalism. That's journalism. You go where the truth leads. You go where the facts lead, no matter where they lead to, even if they lead to, God forbid, your employer, your government, a politician that you thought the story was going to be about them being the hero, and you turned out they were the villain. a true journalist, I thought their point was to report the facts. Anyway, that's why I think platforms like podcasting and independent news outlets like Rebel News is awesome. Follow them if you aren't already. People are finding those outlets rather than just tuning into their TV and listening to the talking head on the screen. So let's talk about Tucker Carlson. So he's interviewing Putin, and like I said, the mainstream outlets are like, oh, he's saying that he's the first one who's ever reached out. We've tried. Again, you tried. If you did, you failed. And even then, there's no way known I would trust that you would actually come back with actual unedited video and an unbiased report on the discussion. Yes, I'm sorry. I am that guy, and there's plenty of people who believe as I do. Mainstream media are trying to sell you the product and sell you the narrative because they are controlled. And you're like, oh, they're controlled by the government? I hate to break it to you, folks. Not even so much that. It's still just controlled by that select few, the billionaires and trillionaires, all the folks at the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and all those guys who say pretty much they're all about a future without people. Seriously, listen to some of the things I say. And again, as I always say, you find out for yourself. Don't listen to me. You find out the truth yourself. But yeah, it's all the elites at the top. That 2%. They are terrified that us common people are going to rise up and figure it out and take some of their precious money, take some of their precious oxygen and resources. Oh my God. They're so anti-people. They really do want to live in an AI future in their mansions up in the snowy country somewhere, looking out going, thank God, we got rid of all the minions, all the commoners who are just taking up space. Anyway, that's my bad guy voice. But Tucker Carlson, he was ostracized from Fox. Like I say, even if you side with Fox thinking they're more conservative on the right, again, they're the same. They're a puppet owned by the corporations just like anyone else. And Tucker Carlson now has his own following. All the millions that watched his show, the millions that brought revenue to Fox, well, guess what they did? They didn't stay at Fox. They followed him. I knew that would happen. That's what I talked about last time. So all the fans are going to follow him, and they're all going to tune in. And now that he's on Twitter or X, and Elon Musk is also backing the true meaning of freedom of speech, he's going to have that platform as well. So I'm just saying, all in all, I'm certainly looking forward to that, and it's very exciting. And like I say, all the mainstream media outlets will bag him and say that he's a Russian operative. Look, that's how he got in. Now, I think everyone recognizes that he's fair. Even if you think Putin is a bad guy and the evil guy, even that person recognizes that he might get a fair chance in getting his voice out there. And this is the other thing. Why do certain journalists these days, I know why, because they don't toe the line for the right narrative. Why do journalists these days get vilified if they want to interview someone like Putin? In the old days, that didn't happen. All the mainstream media guys interviewed, Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and they never got vilified. Oh, what? You can't interview him. You're a traitor. You're a traitor against the country. You're a traitor against America. No, they're just a reporter trying to get the facts, trying to get the whole story. Oh, there is only one story. There's only one side. Really? Spoken like not a journalist. There's never just one side. There are multiple sides, and then as the listener, as the viewer, as the consumer of news, you can figure out what rings true to you and what facts, based on what you've seen, what you know of, the facts, you take on board what you think is true. And that's a journalist, someone who is willing to talk to everyone on both sides and try to find the facts. And I'll be honest, I used to think, everything has a solution. I don't mean to be negative, but I've evolved into more, there's not so much solutions these days, but there's trade-offs. That's not a bad thing. A trade-off's not the worst thing in the world. A trade-off is at least you agreed to disagree, but you came to a conclusion that's the best for both parties in the interim until maybe you can solve the problem. So we live in a world of trade-offs, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Tucker Carlson, I say good on him, and I hope to hear and see so many more interviews from him as he really just tries again to bring us the truth. And, I think of the kind of guests that he has. He just had Ice Cube on, and you won't believe this. Again, go watch it for yourself. Ice Cube is someone who was saying, I had to go on Tucker because he's sort of being banned from other shows, or certainly not actively invited, if not actively banned. Shows like The View, shows like Oprah, and especially something like Oprah. How sad is it that Ice Cube, a successful African-American male who dug his way out of the ghetto with his talent and intelligence, and he is such a role model for anyone in that community. Why wouldn't Oprah want him on? What is that? That seems weird. Isn't Oprah the shining beacon of hope for African-American women and success? But no, because Ice Cube won't go on the show and just speak the narrative. He won't toe the line to say what they all think he's expected to say, which is to say, yes, I'm 100% liberal, leftist, I'm 100% Biden. Again, this is irrelevant whether you're for Biden or you're for Trump or any of this. You should be about this one thing. You should support the person or vote for the person or speak about the person who you think is going to represent you and speak for you. And you should challenge that person, whether it's Biden or Trump. You should say, what are you going to do for my vote? Yeah, sure, they get millions in kickbacks and donations, but it comes down to the vote. And I think if you're going to tick that box, well, you should earn it. They should earn it. So that's the person you should vote for, and you should ask for something in return. What are you going to do for me? That's the kind of things that Ice Cube wants to talk about. But they don't want to hear that. And this is what he was talking about on Tucker, that because he has his own mind, well, of course, as he should, as any grown adult should, especially an American. Freedom of speech, that phrase seems to not mean anything these days. It seems to be more narrative of speech. As in, if you have an opposing view, no, we don't want to hear from you. That's not freedom of speech. That's control. And yeah, on a show like Tucker, even someone like Ice Cube has found that as a bastion of hope for him to be able to openly talk honestly about his views. Again, I think that's both amazing and sad that, someone like that who's even been shut out. But that shows you how extreme it is nowadays, that the mainstream media only wants to hear from all those who will read the script. The script is boring. The script is boring. The script is not truth. And if you're someone who's like, look, this is all too heavy, I don't want to hear the truth, I'm happy to stay in the dark, then that's fine. That's also something you're completely allowed to do. But I put it to you like this. If you're someone who wants to engage in conversations about politics or about pop culture or music or movies or anything where there might be a side taken that errs on the side of any sort of ideology, whether it's gender or race or anything, if you're not open to listening to someone who might have an opposing view, or if you give your opinion and you don't like what that person said and you immediately shut them down, I dare say you should stay out of it because you're part of the problem. If you're not willing to have an open and honest conversation and possibly have someone confront you because they don't 100% agree with you, and at the end you can agree to disagree, but acknowledge that maybe you've both learned something and found some common ground. If you don't work like that, I think that you should stay out of all conversations having to do with politics or decisions about the world. I'm sorry, that's fact. You should just sit back, tune out, put your noise-canceling headphones on, go on to TikTok, and just zone out. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's the beauty of life. That's the beauty, especially of living in a wonderful place, Australia, America, anywhere in the Western world, where you are free to do as you want, as long as you respect others and just do the simple things. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Don't hurt others. Don't actively convince people to try to hurt others, and live in peace. You can do that too. But my thing is, if you're going to get into these conversations and have an opinion, I think you should at least be respectful and have some context and be open to going, oh, well, I don't believe you at all right now, but I'm willing to look into it afterwards. Again, not looking to change your mind. I think that's one of the most difficult things in the world. All you can do is lead people to the truth and see if they'll take it. And Tucker Carlson is one of those, you know. Nowadays, journalists, you know, like Julian Assange, he's a hero. He is someone who uncovered facts about the U.S. government, and I'm sorry that it happened to be about the U.S. government, but the facts are facts, and, you know, they were quite damaging about people being used, people being spied on, people not knowing the truth, and going along with life, making decisions based on lies. And I feel like in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, he would have been a hero. He would have been on the cover of Time. But in this country, he's ostracized, and he's on the run, and he's actually now still in prison, awaiting extradition to the U.S., where I'll tell you right now, they're just waiting to throw him in the... There goes a bike. They're just waiting to throw him in the deepest, darkest hole. So that's another thing. Just think about that. That's how someone who, with the best interest of the American people at heart, with their best interest, he dug into a story and revealed the truth, and he is going to get put in the deepest, darkest hole forever for it. He's going to get ostracized for that and thrown in prison for the rest of his life, if not worse. What happened to America? Seriously. If that's what you do to journalists now. And like I say, Tucker Carlson, you know, he flies pretty close to the sun. He did that with Fox. He flew too close to the sun. And yes, his wings were the wax at his wings melted and he fell to earth. But you know what? I'm glad, because all the people caught him. And now he's got his own Tucker Carlson network. And like I say, I'm looking forward to this interview, and it should be interesting. Again, you don't have to agree with the opinion, but you should be open to hearing why someone has a motivation, especially if it comes to something like war. War is both, it's glamorized, but it's not funny. And I know America is one of the biggest war machines. The military-industrial complex is dug in everywhere. And when I say big pharma, I mean military-industrial complex too. And you think, oh, so what does that mean? On mainstream media, there'll be an ad about joining the army next? No. That's one minute facet of it. When you hear the phrase military-industrial complex, it's not a conspiracy theory thing. Like anything in the world that wants to sustain itself, they're a business. And to do that, you need money. And you can't always wait for handouts. So you don't think the military-industrial complex has its hands, has its fingers in everyone's pie? Of course. They own so many things, patents on all kinds of gizmos, foods, food delivery, the creation of food, genetics of food. They need money streams, and the military is certainly not a money-making machine. Okay, it is. War, sadly, is a money-making machine. But yes, just so you know, the military are diversified and into everything. And so yes, war is big money. So with, the Ukraine-Russian war, a subject like that, wouldn't you want to hear from both sides? Wouldn't you want to hear from the man that this just gets vilified every day on the news? Oh, by the way, I'm sure I'll get in trouble just by saying I'd like to hear what Putin wants to say. Yes. The minute you say that, that's it. You're a racist, you're whatever, you're anti-American, you're a Russian collusionist. Whatever it is, you get all the name calling. But you know what? You know what's funny about that? You can only go so far with name calling until you just numb to it, and then you just don't give a shit. And that's the great thing. And as my podcast is named, I'm Not Famous. I'm not famous, so I already don't give a shit. But I love it when celebrities finally find a place where they don't need the accolades from all of their colleagues in Hollywood, because that's the first problem. especially Hollywood. Hollywood is extremely woke. If you don't toe the line, you are on the outs. But the ones who can break free, kudos to them. That's amazing. Usually it's fuck you money, like Elon Musk, and not everyone's got that. That's the other thing too. You think about, the Elon Musks of the world, and someone who has a voice, or someone like Ice Cube. They have the financial freedom, and that is a real thing today, these folks, that everyone strives for. Financial freedom. Financial freedom is fuck you money. It means that no one can hurt you there, especially if you have money buried in your backyard, because God knows the bank might take your money. The government could certainly freeze your bank money, but that's another story. But when you have stability, then you're not worried about giving your opinion, because they can't cancel you. They can't hurt you. They can't hurt your finances, which might hurt not only you but your family. But that's the thing. That's the elites, the Hollywoods, the billionaires, the millionaires. What about you? What about the regular guy? That's the real scary thing. If for whatever, imagine if you ever you discovered something, and it was going to affect. What if it was going to affect millions? It is possible. You discovered some secret that you could prove to be true, and you were petrified of releasing it, because who are you? Well, first of all, you're anonymous and you're nobody to start with. And you think, well, I could just find a way to release it. Trust me, they'll find you. And when they do, that's when the terrifying part begins. Because it's hard to disappear, Elon Musk. I know they're still looking for Jimmy Hoffa, but, even Jimmy Hoffa, they got rid of him again. Another problem is that, he was someone in the public eye, and they found a way to get rid of him. So yeah, it is a bit scary, because you think, well, it would be easy for them to get rid of me. Anyway, just food for thought, and I certainly hope you all tune in to watch Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin. It should be amazing, and definitely watch the true source of it. Watch Tucker. Don't catch it on CNN or even Fox or somewhere else, because again, we live in a world where words get twisted, video gets twisted, AI, and you think, oh, you're getting a bit extreme there. No, I'm not, because we are at that point where even AI, you'll never really know what's true unless you trust the integrity of the person it's coming from, because that's the best you can hope for. If that person says, I have recorded these words, I've recorded this video, I've taken this statement, and I can confirm it's true, you have to trust the person, because the sentiment doesn't mean shit these days. And by the way, believing what you see, hear, or read these days, shit, that's all out the window too. Because yes, audio can be changed, video can be changed, even if it's slightly. So, that's something I've talked about before and would love to get stuck into again on another podcast. But yeah, the scary world of AI. But I'll leave you with that. And, a real journalist has integrity to get both sides of the story, and that's Tucker Carlson. And freedom of speech, well, that means it's free. And just keep in mind the word misinformation. The people who say that, they are the problem. They are the fascists. They are the oligarchy. There is no such thing as misinformation. There's only information. The one who says misinformation means you said something true, but they don't want anyone to find out. Or let's just say they said something to the contrary to what they're trying to push. And rather than take their chances and know that their position is so strong, or their truth is so truthful, that you can say whatever you want because it can't hurt them. When they're in such fear of what you will say is going to crumble them, and they label you misinformation, watch out for that, because that's the problem. There is only information. And freedom of speech, yes, sometimes someone can say something ugly, something that hurts you and triggers you. You could raise the American flag right next to someone who's burning it. That is freedom. Freedom has a cost, and that's the cost. Being adult enough, brave enough to swallow your pride and know that if that person's opposing you and you believe so vehemently in your heart and your mind, and you know that you have to fight for your truth, then you fight harder. You don't turn on them. That's another thing that I want to leave you with, especially in the current election year with politics. If you can't see, and this isn't even Biden. Biden's just the president. They are just a little guy, a little fish in a big pond. But this is just about the current government turning on everyone in who's going to oppose them and making sure they use the long arm of the law, the Department of Justice, whatever they can to destroy the other. And that is not what I thought politics was in America. To keep your opponent down by ways of smearing them or trying to jail them because you're so afraid that they might have a chance. That's not how it's done. So I leave you with that, folks. Freedom of speech, keep it free, and always follow real, authentic journalists. All right. Hope to catch you again soon. All right. Catch you later.